Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Afterbirth, where we talk about the aftermath of birth. Birthing children or birthing ourselves, the process is messy, but it's always rewarding. As I get older, I realize that the launching pad for healing through it is at the intersection of motherhood and womanhood. What I know is that to heal through it, you have to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Afterbirth. My name is Stephanie, and this is Season 1, Episode 1 of the next steps of figuring it out. Prior to this venture, you may be familiar with my short form content or even my other YouTube content where I am essentially raising myself while I'm raising my 6-year-old Cadence. For the last 3 years, I've essentially been sharing transparently what it looks like to actively leave an abusive relationship, as well as do all the things I need to do to get back to myself and just live life in the way that I've always wanted to. Luckily, in doing so, I've built a large community, and I've been able to say finally that even though I'm a single mother, I am seldom alone. Anyway, why Afterbirth? So for me, it's a play on words. The first part definitely having to do with motherhood. I'll spare you the graphics, but after you have that baby, other things happen after the birth. The second part is all about womanhood. It's all about that rebirth. We are constantly reinventing ourselves. I mean, literally last night I was on Pinterest till like 1 o'clock in the morning, and now I have a new personality. So that is Afterbirth, and that is what we'll be talking about. Motherhood, womanhood, and all the things in between. All right, so let's take it from the beginning. Like I said, you guys may have been familiar with my story from my Instagram, TikTok, or even my YouTube, where I've been sharing what it took for me to leave a place that I no longer felt that I would be safe in. So, yeah, let's take it from the beginning one more time. Some of you may or may not know I was in a relationship with a narcissist. I think it's extremely important when you are in those types of relationships and when you have left, especially when you've left those relationships, that you share the details of what happened. Of course, to your comfort. But what I found is that anyone I have talked to, I mean, regardless of race, regardless of religion background, regardless of where they lived, even so geographically, we always had something in common. And that something was every single thing that we have gone through while surviving a relationship with a narcissist. The thing about them is that they're not original. Their abuse is actually pretty textbook, and it's actually really messed up that it's not detailed somewhere in the DSM-5 where we can actually warn each other of what to look out for. A lot of us tend to just find ourselves in these relationships. Maybe we don't even know what type of relationship we're in, and we're just flailing. And some of us get out of them and some of us don't. So it's important to me that I continue to tell my story from the beginning and be as detailed as humanly possible, because I know that it not only liberates me, but it also helps to liberate the next woman. So we're going to take it from the beginning. And I am wanting to say immediately, this just comes to mind. If at any point you are able to relate to any part of this story, I want to sincerely first say sorry. I think that, you need to know that you did not deserve that. You don't deserve that. So if you are going through this, take your time with this episode. And if you have gone through this and you're over on the other side, I am so proud of you. And yeah, I'm glad that you made it. So at 27, I'd already been living in New York. I think I moved there the year prior to. I'd been working at NYU, got my dream job straight out of getting my master's degree. But at 27, I'd already left that dream job and got to my next dream job, which was in teaching. So it was my second job in education, and I was thriving, y'all. I was doing my thing. One thing about me then, I was very achievement focused, very driven. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, or so I thought. And my life was kind of already planned out. The only thing that was missing and has always been missing for me is a little partner. First and foremost, I am a Libra. I thrive in partnership, whatever the partnership may be, whether it be friend, platonic, or romantic. I love having someone next to me. And at the time, it was almost an identity for me to have someone next to me. So regardless of me doing so well in school and, getting all these achievements and step by step having everything in my life planned out, there were also some things within me that had never been addressed. So like childhood trauma that had never been addressed and never talked about, and I was never allowed to express them. So I took those into adulthood with me in a very isolated, very busy, very chaotic city. And I did not know it at the time, but now looking back, it made me the perfect candidate for a narcissist. At the time, I had a fractured relationship with my parents. I definitely came from an abusive home myself. I didn't really have close friends or anyone that I can immediately refer to or, seek shelter from. And also, I was very achievement based. So my value was in my achievements. And all of those things really made for someone who was broken essentially and someone who was in search of something deeper, but I did not realize it at the time. So this person wasn't actually a stranger to me. We had met several years prior, but then because we were on two different coasts, we just kind of like lost contact with each other. His life went on, my life went on. And it wasn't until I went to Haiti and I was on a vacation with my family that we reconnected. I remember there was like some sort of a storm or something that kept me stuck there, and we had connected back on Instagram and we were chatting here and there and just, oh my gosh, just catching up. How are you? How are you? And whatnot. And then I got back to the States and back to New York and we continued to connect from there. So in between that, I'd actually gotten in a whole other relationship and I believe that he was in one as well. But we maintained a friendship, lost ways again, but then came back to one another. In my head, this felt like must be fate. It must be, who I'm supposed to come back to because we had, done all these different things in our lives more than once at this point, but we just kept coming back to each other. And so it happened. We got together and at the beginning, I would say that things were okay. Of course, knowing what I know now, even as early as that, there were immediate red flags, right? But to me at the time, because I had grown up in a home with my father, who's really almost the same, it was almost a mirror. I would not have seen those things as a red flag at the time. To me, they were um, uh, a challenge, if anything, and if not that, they were definitely just something I was familiar with. So it didn't affect my nervous system whatsoever. So we got together, we were doing the dating thing, and things moved along very, very quickly. Not too long after, I became a mother. Well, I became a single mother. I can confidently say now, I've always been a single mother. Like I said, there were a lot of red flags at the beginning of this relationship that I didn't know were red flags, but they definitely would have pointed out had I known then to the type of relationship and the type of fatherhood and the type of motherhood I was about to experience. Like I said, I've always been a single mom. I didn't only struggle after I had that baby, after I had my girl Cadence, but I struggled greatly throughout the entire pregnancy. It was like this person that I had known and had fun with, and we would, here and there have little arguments and fights, but it was nothing to the degree of the second I had told him that I was pregnant. It just seemed like this person that was my friend turned into a complete new person. Well, they didn't turn into anything. I guess they just revealed who they actually were. I will literally never forget the depths of despair that I felt and endured and barely survived during and after my pregnancy. I went through a lot, and keeping in the vein of transparency, I'll share a little bit of that. My earliest memories would be of making sure Cadence was fed. I did not have my mom's support there at the beginning for several reasons, and we'll get into that definitely towards the end of this podcast. But I didn't have my mom's support there, so I just had this baby by C-section at that. We were in the hospital for 3 days. I was getting antibiotics. So was she. We were separated for those entire 3 days. And by the time we got home, I was exhausted. I was feeling super lost. I was very hurt that my mom wasn't able to stay with me. And I was alone in a house with this person that I didn't want to be anywhere near. So the immediate friction started as soon as I got home with a brand new baby. It was not the type of motherhood that I imagined. It wasn't the type of motherhood that anyone could imagine. Like, who gets pregnant to, suffer? That's just not, like, it's just not normal. It's not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to think. And it wasn't right. So I remember, as I said, my earliest memory was, making sure that she was fed. And because I didn't have the support, I didn't really follow through with exclusively breastfeeding. So what I was doing was pumping. And pumping takes a lot. It is a lot of work. You got to make sure that the bottles are all clean. You got to clean the pump parts and doing it was just a lot on me. And again, I was not alone in the house, but I might as well have been. And so one night I remember saying, "Hey, I really need like the bottles to be cleaned at a faster pace. Can you jump in and do those so they're all ready for me to pump for, the next round?" Looking back now, it's like insane that I even had to ask that because this is your child too. Like you have to make sure they eat. But instead of, yeah, sure, maybe slipped his mind or maybe he didn't know how to help at that time or whatever, I was communicating what I needed. And instead of just jumping in and helping, I'll never forget, he literally started to tally every bottle that he cleaned. It was just psychological warfare, y'all, like literally from day one. Imagine asking the father of your child to help you make sure that the bottles are clean and ready for next use. And instead of just helping, he would literally put tally marks on the refrigerator whiteboard that I use to track my pumping schedule to show me that he is cleaning things and how many he's done throughout the day versus how many I've done. Me, still recovering from a C-section. I also remember my first follow-up from the C-section, I went by myself. He just simply did not want to come. And the part of that that will always stick with me is not that I went by myself, because at this point I've been very used to doing things by myself, even before him. It was that when I went to my OBGYN, she actually made me feel really, really bad. I don't know if she meant to. We did have a little friction throughout my pregnancy, but I showed up. And again, I had a C-section, so you're not supposed to be lifting anything and whatever. I had no other way to get there. I got myself there. I lifted Cadence in her car seat, got there. And, I'm happy I got myself there. And her first words were, how did you get here? And I was like, myself? She's like, how did you carry this baby? I was like, myself. Like, let's get on with I'm here. What's going on? And she was like, you need to find someone to help you. If you're going to carry on like this, you're going to injure yourself and then you're not going to be able to be a mother to your child. That was the first slap in the face and the first kind of awakening that I am indeed a single mother. The early part of my motherhood experience was essentially marked by survival, and a non-sustainable survival at that. So now we're at the point where I knew I needed to leave. Y'all, leaving a narcissist is not easy. It's tactical and it's just as tiring as staying with a person who exhibits these behaviors. You'll need help. And something that I really need to clarify, friendship is not the help that you think that you need in that moment. Actually, it's not the help that you need in that moment. While your friends will be there to support you, while your friends who have always loved you will continue to love you, when leaving a relationship like this, you need a professional. So my best bet was to get in therapy. And I will never, ever forget the therapist that I had at the time, because not only did she step in to help me, she also stepped in to be my voice when I did not have one, but she still used me. So by that, I mean, she literally would tell me at one point, word for word, what to say to this person so that I would reduce the friction or reduce the conflict. So again, being with someone like this, their traits are that they like to argue. They like to cause chaos. They actually thrive on the fact that you are kind of in a tornado all the time and your feet are not on the ground. So you're in a tizzy. You don't know what to say. You're kept arguing and arguing and arguing until you're just too tired to make a point or care about your original point. So she would definitely intervene and step in between that to make sure that my point was put across and that I would save my energy. Leaving for me was definitely done in stages. And I think that's pretty common. I think that, when people talk about leaving relationships like this, they kind of, well, yeah, I knew it was bad for me and I left. Okay. Not everyone, and I would argue that very rarely can you get up and overnight and decide to leave a person, who behaves like this, a narcissist, and leave them overnight. It happens in stages. At least for me, it definitely had to happen in stages. One, I was very beaten down by that time that I decided I wanted to leave. And two, I was a mom. I definitely did not see myself being a single mother, even though I was, right? I didn't want other people to see that I was going to be a single mom. I did not want that label. I was very, very scared. And I also wasn't sure how to leave. So I knew that, this was not the life for me. This was not what God had planned for me. But I also did not know how to get out of what I was in. So I stayed with my therapy. And although, she was really helping me to build my self-esteem, what I also recognized is that the issue was not a lack of self-esteem. I think that when people tell you, okay, you have to love yourself enough to get out of an abusive relationship, or they make it seem as though that, you lack self-esteem, which is why you stay in an abusive relationship, you don't lack self-esteem. You lack resources. You lack the proper help. Because to me, You have self-esteem once you realize that this is not a place that you need to be in. Once you realize, hey, this relationship is abusive, I don't belong here, that is self-esteem point blank period. You know you deserve better. And so start being proud of yourself from there. Leaving is not the measure of the self-esteem. It's already recognizing that you don't deserve this type of treatment. That right there is enough to be proud of yourself for. It literally took me 4 years to leave this relationship. I was leaving this relationship for longer than we were even involved with each other. It takes that long. And I never want to skip over the fact that it takes time and all the things I had to do while I was leaving in order to ensure that I was going back less and less and less. And let me be clear, the things I was doing are what I deem to be the most important. I think if people meet me now, they'll see this like soft life, this soft luxury type thing, which I don't really mean to, you know, portray myself as that. That's just comes with what is happening in my life now. But back then, the way I was able to sustain leaving and cutting off my need to go back and cutting off the manipulation to go back was by giving myself all of the things that I wanted him to give to me, all of the things that I waited for him and partners before him and even my parents to give to me, I was giving to myself. So, getting myself the flowers, taking time for myself, taking myself out to dinners, just literally indulging in all of the things that I thought I had to wait for someone else to do to me or for me. I was getting in the habit of doing those things for myself. The more I did those things for myself, the more they became habits that I had for myself and expectations I had of myself. And I knew if anyone was going to show up for me, it was always going to be me. Like I've always had to, I was able to rely on myself. And it made me depend on him less and less. You can't do for me what I can do for myself. So, what are we really talking about here? Transparently, I definitely had moments in between those years and after those years where I let my boundaries slide. I definitely, backslid a little bit. I entertained what I should not have entertained. But, now that I think about it and I'm able to analyze it from a clear perspective and a space completely clear of those backslides, I was able to, at the time, I was telling myself that, I'm doing this for a reason. I can give myself a scientific reason why this was happening because, the same parts of your brain that are lit up for love and abusive love are the same parts of your brain that are stimulated by drug addiction. So, though I can explain it to myself in those ways, I could also tell myself that, I was doing this for my daughter. She needed him to be around and she needed to see us get along in a different way. I had all the excuses, some valid, some less valid than others. But in reality, what was actually happening was that I needed this person, this one person who have always been unsuccessful in convincing that I'm worthy, that I am worthy. I wanted him to acknowledge that, hey, without you, I'm still a survivor. I'm thriving. I'm doing more than surviving, and I'm successful in this, and people recognize me for this, and I'm doing good. I need you to tell me that you see that I'm doing good. One thing I learned from that, y'all, is that I have changed. He has not. While I took all that time to evolve and do all that work and do whatever, he has not. So I came back this, you know, evolved person and this person doing much better for themselves, thus doing much better for their child. And I went back to this space that never understood that in the first place. I was perfect without success, without any of these things, without whatever I have now. I was lovable then. I was fine. There was nothing wrong with me and they couldn't take care of that. I hate it for myself. I'm sad for that Stephanie then who still felt the need to go back and beg again for that type of acknowledgement. But, it is what it is. That is who I was then. And looking back, that is why I went back. Those are why I had my boundaries slide. It wasn't about my daughter. It wasn't about anything else or anybody else. It was literally about little Stephanie needing that acknowledgement, needing the person who was avoidant attachment to turn it around somehow and tell me that, no, yeah, you love me now. Like you value me now. You see me now. At the foundation of a relationship with someone who is avoidant attachment or somebody who has narcissistic tendencies or traits is that they rely on you to need validation from them. And that is something that I struggled with really, really badly during that entire time. Like I said at the beginning of this, I have a very fractured relationship with my parents. so much so that I don't speak to either of them. And of course, we'll be talking about that as this podcast goes on. But that is, a breeding ground for being in one of these relationships. I was repeating the things that I was taught in my own household. So for me, I'm someone who thrives off of acknowledgement via achievement. So for my dad to ever express or acknowledge that it even existed in the house, I had to get the degree, get it faster than anybody else, get the higher grades. Just I had to be the best at whatever I was doing. And even now, I feel like someone could ask my dad, like, what college did I go to? And he wouldn't be able to tell you. But for me, my entire college career, every decision I've made, anything I've done even before that has been to make my dad proud, to be seen by my dad. And for my mom, same thing. I had to be perfect. I literally had to walk on eggshells to make sure to not upset my dad. I had to make sure to not upset the, rose-colored lifestyle that my mother was forming so that no one else outside the household could see that she too was struggling as a mother and as a wife. So that did nothing but help me perpetuate that in my own abusive relationship later on as an adult myself. I mean, think about how that might resonate for you. We literally bring so much of our childhood trauma into our current selves. Whether you know it or not, it informs the way that we allow others to treat us, and it informs the way that we stay in these types of relationships until we recognize these things about ourselves. So going back to me telling you that you absolutely need professional help in order to recognize these things, or in order to face these things, and then learn how to move away from them so that you're able to move away from situations like this and hopefully never again be susceptible to people who are narcissistic or have narcissistic tendencies. So the now. I'm alive. I've made it. I've more than made it. I am thriving. I feel like I'm thriving. Life is, of course, not perfect, but every day life is at my direction and it is at my discretion. And it is the way that I've always known that it was going to be. Something, I find interesting when I look at other interviews, or I, just see what's going on, tap into the world, tap into the culture. I find that a lot of people are like surprised by the success that they have, or, they just kind of were dropped where they were. Of course, I had no idea that, sharing my little story and continuing to share, the life that I'm creating for me and my daughter would turn into all that it has turned into. I didn't know about that, right? I didn't know where we were going to end up. But one thing I have always known is how my life was supposed to feel. And I'm telling you, this is exactly how I envisioned it. It's exactly what I've always felt in my body. And that is peaceful. Peaceful. Right now, I can tell you there are 1,000 other things I need to do. I was like 17 minutes late, even starting this podcast today. Things might seem chaotic, but the chaos is I could do bad all by myself. Anything that is not going correct or perfect or anything in my life is by my own hand. And I feel blessed to say those things. I am finally in control of my own life. In a way, I feel like I have just gone through the most roughest, toughest, almost didn't make it birth. And, sometimes I'm the baby, I was stuck in the canal or something like that. And sometimes I'm the mother, I'm the person doing the birthing. But either way, I had to go through this. I didn't know why I had to go through this, but I'm more clear than ever, especially now, why I had to go through this and that I indeed had to go through this. I feel like experiencing that helped me become who I am now. It kicked me into adulthood. It shook me from this safe bubble space that I've always been in. And it really helped me to realize that if I am going to ever get that, that peace or that happiness that I always knew that my life was supposed to feel like or supposed to look like, I had to be a different person. I could not be the Stephanie that was 27 in New York and relying on her achievements to be all her value. And even the Stephanie prior to that, because she experienced some things that she didn't need to experience as well. But you know what? I take it back. She needed to experience those so the next Stephanie could become the next Stephanie and become the Stephanie that you see before you today. So it definitely happened for me after experiencing what happened to me. So this is the Afterbirth, and I'm really excited to continue this conversation with you guys. I'm excited to continue to grow this community, make new friends, make new memories, and have you guys alongside with me throughout the entire thing. I'm also really excited to give back to this community in a tangible way. So definitely stick along with this channel, my previous channels, or any of my other social media to see what we're doing for the community. So that's it for episode 1, season 1 of The Afterbirth. And remember, it's okay to reinvent yourself as many times as you need to, because the next woman might need the woman who you're becoming in order to liberate themselves.